Hey, Sassy Stuff, I'm Emma,
I'm Blythe.
and we're going to talk about the first ever 12-team playoff college football matchup between Notre Dame and Indiana. Notre Dame came out on top 27-17. Don't let that score fool you. That happened in the last 2 minutes of the game. I'm not happy. Are you?
Well, let's talk about this environment first because I'm honestly something needs to change going forward because how electric this environment was for this type of game, playoff game, these teams get to host. Really, these top seeds need to be able to host.
Yeah.
Like there was really nothing like it. I could feel it through the television watching it. And listening to College Game Day this morning and listening to Coach Freeman on there, they had him talking about the game, the atmosphere, and there was just a different kind of energy. I think you could tell in his voice and in his face talking about it. So I hope that we see that going forward. But to talk about the game, it was the first ever game in this 12-team playoff history. The streak continues. Indiana hasn't beaten Notre Dame in South Bend in over 126 years. Riley Leonard made the Fighting Irish history by the most single season rushing touchdowns for a Notre Dame QB ever. He went 22 for 32 with 201 yards and one touchdown with another 30 yards and a score on the ground. But this Notre Dame defense, domination, completely. Such a dominant performance from the Fighting Irish, and they never trailed and comfortably, they controlled both sides of the football for most of the game, really, until, the meaningless score by the Hoosiers in the final moments of the game. But overall, I think this is kind of what we expected. We talked about this on previous shows. We felt like Notre Dame would have this edge with this quarterback, with their running back, Jeremiah Love. Crazy impressive run.
That was
And
awesome.
awesome. Yeah.
98-yard touchdown run.
Insane.
It really set the tone for this game. It was
It
awesome.
really did. It really did. And I think it was, what we expected. I don't think there was anything that surprising.
That's the problem. I wanted to be wrong, Blythe. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted Indiana to put up a fight, but they got blown out by the two best teams they faced up against. Their best
Yeah.
win is against 7-5 Michigan. They beat one team this year with a winning record.
Yeah.
So you can't look at Indiana and say they're objectively better than Ole Miss, South Carolina, maybe Miami, and certainly not Alabama. And I'm just sitting here like, and if you disagree, I get it, Oklahoma, Vandy, and blah blah blah. But Kentucky, but you're just hating on the SEC, and that's okay. Please do, because that's what makes college football great. I included an ACC team in there. I'm just like, I think college football fans lost last night. You had a very, very boring game, and we're taping this around 10 o'clock on Saturday, so we haven't even watched the other games yet, and I'm worried about the next two. I just want good football. That's what I've been asking for.
I know. I mean, honestly, I'm wondering seriously if they will go to 16 after looking at this year. Will they go to 16? And then, will those top four seeds, will they get to host? I think they totally should. I think it brings just such a different energy. And plus, they've won. Like, they earned that. I think they should be able to host. And I just really think watching that game was really special last night and had just such a different kind of juice. I was so jacked up last night. I was like, let's go. I'm so ready for the games tomorrow. I wish I was traveling to Austin, but I will be cheering today. But still,
You
just
can come to Atlanta.
so electric. Yeah, that's true. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But I thought one cool thing, and I didn't know this. If you notice the names on the back of the jerseys,
Yeah, I loved it.
that is their postseason tradition. They only put the names on the back of the jerseys for postseason games.
I was like, if Notre Dame and Oregon played each other, that would be a very appealing
Yeah.
game. I think those two colors would really align together. I think it would be beautiful. But that's not my pick, but I would like it.
Yeah.
visually it would look nice. But Notre Dame was just, like you said, dominant on defense. They really pressured Indiana's QB, Curtis Rourke. They limited his effectiveness that he's had pretty much all season, except with Ohio State.
Yep.
They dominated on the line of scrimmage despite losing Riles Mills and Bryce Young to injuries, which now you got to go play Georgia. And I think you got to keep that team as healthy as you possibly can. Indiana and Georgia are two very different teams. And I understand Georgia does not have Carson Beck right now. It will be most likely Gunnar Stockton.
Yep.
We haven't heard otherwise. So that is going to be a battle. They are a different beast than Indiana. And if you're losing players, that's why I was kind of worried at the end of the game there. I was like, take those starters off. You got bigger battles ahead of you.
Yeah. And I had that note mentioned as well. And just some other notes, obviously, like you were saying, Notre Dame has now punched their ticket to go and play Georgia. Also, last night, Indiana allowed 155 yards rushing in the first half, and that's more than it's allowed in any other game this season.
Yeah.
Notre Dame is now 73-1 in its last 74 games with a 14-plus point advantage, and it has a 27-game winning streak in such contests. Indiana quarterback threw his 29th touchdown of the year late in the fourth quarter, which is a single-season program record for them. But obviously looking ahead for this Notre Dame football team, getting ready to play a team like Georgia on College Game Day, that Coach Freeman just talked about this. Actually, Coach Saban asked him, have you looked at Georgia already? Have you studied this film? What do you see out of them that makes them disruptive? And one of the things he talked about was, obviously enjoying these next 24 hours because the game ended late last night. And now he's already on this interview. There wasn't Wi-Fi on this campus, apparently. So he was on a hotspot or some kind of service doing this live Zoom call this morning on game day. But, he talked about how he is going to look at what his team needs to work on first. And then once he does that, then obviously he'll look ahead to Georgia and the problems that they present, obviously, which are a few.
We're on to bigger and better things. Hopefully. We got 3 games to watch today, and I hope I am more entertained.
Yes.
Not all about me, but you should go see Twitter. Lane Kiffin, our favorite tweeter.
We have been telling you guys all year. If you're not following Lane Kiffin on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, Twitter, whatever, you need to, because he's a character. He is an absolute character. He is feral. Okay.
Exciting competitive game at CFB playoff. Great job. And that's the kind of content you'll get from Lane.
And he doesn't care.
No, and I love him for it. He's a fun guy. I'm excited to see what Notre Dame has moving forward. They definitely displayed championship level defense, which is good because you're going up against a Kirby Smart defense. You're really going to have to limit Trevor Etienne, Nate Frazier, and of course Stockton. But the good thing for Georgia is nobody knows much about Stockton. It's hard to prep for this guy. You really just had one half in the SEC championship.
Yeah.
And that's all the film you really have. I know he played baby bits against little teams earlier this year, but that's it. So that could honestly be a benefit for Georgia. We'll break that game down when we get closer, but I think this is looking to be like a good matchup. I hope. I'm just like, Twitter lost their mind about strength of schedule. Why Indiana was included in the top 12 to begin with. But you know what? This is a learning year.
Yeah.
And I was just disappointed that this was the first game in the 12-team playoff. And I'm worried about 2 more games later today. And I just want these great matchups. I want these good games if we are bringing 12 teams into the mix. And like you said, we're going to extend it probably to 14 or 16 coming up. This is only this year and next year with 12 teams in place. I don't know if they can override that before the season, but It's going to be interesting for sure. Indiana definitely had a fantastic season, but on the show, they even said that Kirk Signetti looked at that schedule and said, I can win 10 games.
Yep.
I can win 10 of those right there. And they won 11. Good for him because
Yep.
he didn't think Michigan was going to be good. I mean, he thought Michigan was going to be good this year. So, I mean, they got exposed. It wasn't pretty, but it's what we thought. It's what we thought, and I'm glad they had the opportunity, but I think things are going to change because of it.
Yeah, I mean, they probably will, and that's the thing that's tricky is like they did with the rules that we have, they did what they were supposed to do with the games that they were given. They won like they needed to, and they got in with the rules that are what they are right now. So that's the thing that's tricky. And college football playoff, they'll be the ones that have to make that call. I don't know if, like you were saying, if they could probably expand it for this next season, but definitely by 2026, I think we'll see an even deeper number for this college football playoff, whether that's 16 or what the number is. I feel like that'll definitely have to change come 2026.
Yeah, and even if they don't change it next year, which I don't know if they can, the rules will certainly change. Like how they
Oh yeah.
rank these teams are
Mhm.
going to change. They won't rank an 11-1 Indiana as highly because
Yeah.
they beat 7-5 Michigan, but then they lost to Ohio State in a big
Yeah.
way. And then the rest of the teams had losing records that they
Yeah.
beat up on. So it it's going to be interesting to see how they
Yeah.
change moving forward. I think if we have another bad game coming up in the first round or even two, then things might get a little bit messy, but or
But
maybe that's just my opinion.
but kind of what's messed this up though is the uneven number of teams like in these conferences. Like you have added all these teams, like so therefore, like when you're doing that, a lot of these, mediocre type teams are able to bypass.
Yeah.
So it's just it's uneven. When there used to be, different sides, east, west, coastal, Atlantic, whatever it may be, like it was equal. So now that you've put, uneven numbers into all of these conferences, that's why it's not adding up. That's why all of this is messed up.
I think the SEC is going to start bringing in new teams to the SEC that might not be as dominant. So come on, Middle Tennessee. You want to be in the SEC? You want to be an in-conference schedule game? Like, why not? Come on, South Florida. Now, some people have trouble with South Florida. But come on, South Florida. Come be in the SEC. Why not? And then the big boys can kind of get easier conference games.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's going to happen unless things get changed. And I kind of want it to stop because tradition matters to me. And I'm already upset with conference realignment in a lot of places because it has destroyed certain traditions.
Yeah.
But that is what is going to happen if new rules are not put in place to kind of make it fairer in a way.
But also, I think there are going to be, we're talking conferences, we're talking, teams that were added. That's why I think a lot of eyes obviously have been on Texas because, like we talked about, who have they played? Nobody but Georgia. Nobody but Georgia. Who have they lost to? Georgia. Not once, twice. So that's going to be, they might be exposed. We don't know. Like we
don't know. That's the thing. It's like
don't
we're
know.
gonna figure out how important strength of schedule is across the board, even for our SEC teams, because Texas hasn't had as difficult of a road as the other new SEC, Oklahoma did. If they had Oklahoma's schedule, how would they have fared this year? They avoided some of the biggest teams in the SEC. The only big one they played was Georgia. We thought the Michigan win was something special, and it wasn't. Obviously, we have not watched the game today yet, so we don't know what they're going to do with Clemson. But Blythe, close your ears. Clemson's 9-3, dropping 2 games to the SEC. So we don't know. And even if they beat Clemson today, which they may or may not. And that's
No.
going to be a very interesting matchup
Yeah.
regardless. We'll learn a lot of things about both
Both.
teams, but I will be interested to see if they get through Clemson, Arizona State, how they pair up against a potential Oregon, Tennessee, or
Yeah.
Ohio State. That's what I want to see, is if they get to that point, how will they fare in that game? And so we're gonna see what strength of schedule does to these teams, even with Oregon.
Mhm.
Oregon's in the Big Ten. Yes, they beat Penn State. Yes, they beat Ohio State. Not by large margins. So I'm ready to see, and we are
Yeah.
seeing currently. So it's going to be an interesting road for sure. A lot of changes will be made, as we've always said. We're going to do an episode on changes we think should happen moving forward.
Yeah, I mean,
Write a letter.
we can sit here all day and talk about, what if Bama, what if Ole Miss, what if South Carolina, and all of these, it's a fun middle game to just sit here and speak like hypothetically. But, after Selection Sunday, and especially after just like the playoff and that, this and that. But, something will change for sure. This is the first year. It's got to work out all the kinks, all the things. And hopefully they just reevaluate. And so, then next year hopefully those 12 best will be in, whether that's strength of schedule, head to head, whatever it may be.
It needs to be a healthy mix of
A
all of
healthy
it.
mix of both, yeah. And just, I don't know, maybe get a different committee, maybe filter
Or
it
go
out.
back to the BCS model, or ask AI. AI will tell you.
Yeah, I don't know what the solution is. We're just here to talk about it. So we appreciate all of the viewers that watch our shows every week, and be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. We will be with you all the upcoming weeks talking about these playoff games, other bowl games, and everything to come. So we appreciate all of you. We hope you have a Merry Christmas, and we will see you soon.